I'd ask everybody, well, to please take their seat, or if they prefer not to take their seat, that's fine. Are we on the air? We are. Okay, it's 7:02. I will start tonight's meeting and ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. Before we get to public comment, I want to go, because we never know how long public comment goes, we're going to go right. We're going to go right to our 7:05 appointment, which is only a minute and a half away, 2 minutes away. So we have with us the recognition for State Representative Jennifer Benson, who has stepped down to pursue other opportunities after serving 11 years as the 37th Middlesex District Representative. I have known Jen, I was thinking about this as I was thinking about my remarks, let's see, over 16 years, I guess. So we both got involved in town around the same time. Jen has served on the school committee, eventually as its chair, and then leapfrog from there when our first 37th Middlesex District representative was going to run for state senator. So Jen put her hat in the ring then and won the seat, so she was only our second ever 37th Middlesex District representative. She served very well in Lunenburg in the committees that she served there. I served with her on a charter review committee. There were probably others, I think school building committee. I came in at the tail end of the primary school. And then as state representative, right after her election, before she even got sworn in, I'm sure she'll remember this well, was the fated December 2008 ice storm, which kind of threw her into the middle of everything without any kind of honeymoon getting ready and settled in. So she was calling people in the State House, including the governor, before even officially in that capacity, being in that capacity as state rep. She worked hard then on that situation, kept us informed, again, even before her inauguration, of what was going on, and eventually saw that whole process through and was very instrumental, along with the rest of the state delegation from this district, of getting the laws changed and having Governor Deval Patrick come here and sign legislation right in this very stage. She ran, you were in your 6th term, right? So, and has decided to take other opportunities now, but she served well, always, I believe, in the best interest of not only Lunenburg, which she served very well and really advocated for the things that we cared about most, but also for the whole district. Lunenburg is just one part of a big district, so you don't win re-election by just carrying Lunenburg, carrying, Acton and Boxborough and Shirley and the other parts of the town. I'm not going to make this a test on whether I can remember every district and every town in the district. I hope so. A strong advocate for education and for the environment, especially, among other things, and I look forward to what she's going to be doing. I know what she's doing next, but I look forward to seeing what comes of that, and I wish her all the best. You were excellent to work with at the state level, always had a door open. Her office here in town, as well as at the State House. If any constituent wanted to come and visit, to either get a tour or talk about an issue, always available. And I really wish her the best and thank her for all her years of service. Thank you.
So first, I have to thank you all. I know you didn't come here just for me. As Josh Deary, my last district director, told me, he was not here for me.
So, you know. That throughout his tenure, by the way.
I know. Yeah. I know. No, but I can say that If I can do this without crying, if anybody saw my farewell speech in the House knows that I cannot get through this without crying. But it was the greatest honor of my life to support the town that helped me raise my kids and my family. So 17 years in elected office from Lunenburg. I'm very, very proud of that. And every time in the State House they put my name up and they misspelled Lunenburg, I threw a fit. But, you know, part of the honor of doing the job isn't the title. It isn't, you know, it's fun to walk in the first time and see your name on the ballot, right? I'm not going to lie, that is totally cool. But it is about really being able to learn and understand and listen to people. You get to, and you know because you're doing this, you learn more about your neighbors and your community and what their needs are and their fears and their dreams and everything in such an intimate way. And they trust you with that. And it's such, that's the honor. The honor isn't the title, it isn't the office, it's the fact that people come to you and trust you with the most important things in their lives at that time, whether it's a healthcare issue, an unemployment issue, they are losing their house and they need help. And so often, our office is the point of last hope. And they come to us in their most vulnerable moments. And it's up to us to quietly and respectfully help them through that. And that's not what you see on a bumper sticker or in a article in the newspaper. It's the work that goes completely unseen for good reason, because it's people who come to you in their darkest hour at times, and they ask you for help. And I've had the opportunity to do that in 6 different towns, and you may think that these towns are all very different, and I can name them all, but the issues that people are facing are the same. They worry about their kids, they worry about their schools, they worry about their parents, they worry about holding on to their home, finding a job. It's the things that we all care about. And it doesn't matter, and I hope people will always remember this, and it's true, in my office, people would always call and they'd say, well, I voted for you. I said, that's not a prerequisite. I will help you. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you voted at all. Of course, I do care if you vote. But my job is to serve. And that doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or anything else. And, I tried to touch on this when I left the House. I have great fear that we are becoming so jaded and so divided that the core mission is getting lost. And the mission is being part of a community and serving each other. And you don't have to be in office to do that. It's a great honor to do that in office, and we have tools at our disposal to help people. But I chose to live in Lunenburg not because it matched my political ideology, but because it was home to my kids. And it's a really special place. So it was a great honor for me to serve here in town on, I think I counted once how many committees I served on here in town. My husband served on the Cultural Council and on school parent councils, and everything. We really tried to give back because we felt we had been given so much. And so now it's time for somebody else. I never thought this was a lifetime job, and I've seen it change a lot in the time that I was there, and it's becoming more frustrating because I think people are so focused on what's happening in Washington and out there, they're forgetting about what's happening right here. And that's what, it all matters, but that's what really matters. And so, I hope, if I have a legacy, so to speak, that that I tried to do well by Lunenburg and by all the towns that I represented. And I tried to be kind. And I think that we need more of that. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the townspeople here in Lunenburg for trusting me for 17 years, and I'm still here. I will say that many people maybe remember when I first ran for school committee, my son was 2. He is now a sophomore in college. And so when I say that this town raised my kids, it really, really did. Because there are a lot of things that I missed in service to the town, concerts, games, whatever, but you were there, and so I knew they were in good hands. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to open it up. I don't know if anybody on the board would like to say anything. We do have a proclamation that I'll read, but I want to give the board a chance. If anybody would like to, there's no requirement, obviously.
I already spoke to you earlier, so it's been a pleasure,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Or if anybody in the audience would like
No,
to
and
say
I would,
anything.
well, I would say thank you, and it's not easy with little kids finding all the extra time, especially when a certain topic draws you in even deeper, and that happens on, a local level, and I'm sure it happens even more on a state level. And it's hard to find a balance, but it needs people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Tom hit all the high notes, but thank you so much for the years of service. I know it's a lot of work and dedication, and so appreciate it.
And we do all appreciate it. Service to the community, I think, is a lot of work, and you do it with a smile, and you do it graciously, and you did it day after day, and I saw you in lots of meetings, so thank you for all of your service to our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we have a proclamation honoring State Representative Jennifer E. Benson. Whereas upon the occasion of her resignation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives in January 2020, the Lunenburg Board of Selectmen wishes to express its sincere appreciation for her loyal and dedicated service to the town and the 37th Middlesex District and its citizens. And whereas Ms. Benson has served the residents of Lunenburg as a devoted public servant since 2003, serving on the Lunenburg School Committee for over 5 years and the Democratic Town Committee. And whereas Ms. Benson has served as Massachusetts State Representative since 2008, serving on the joint committees on telecommunications, utilities and energy, education reform, community development and small businesses, healthcare financing, public service, consumer protection and professional licensure, revenue and state administration, and regulatory oversight, as well as the House Committee on Post-Audit and Oversight and the House Committee on Personnel and Administration. And whereas Ms. Benson has served with professionalism, a positive attitude, integrity, and grace under pressure, and whereas the Board of Selectmen and the citizens of Lunenburg are most grateful for the many contributions Ms. Benson has made during her career in public service, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Lunenburg Board of Selectmen extends to Ms. Benson best wishes for many years of success, well-being, and happiness during her future endeavors. This 18th day of February 2020, signed by the Board of Selectmen. It has been an honor and pleasure to serve with you always. Anybody would like to take a picture with her?
Wow. Thank you. Those are beautiful. I thought they were married.
Sure.
Oh, the photo. Right. Ready? Oh, should we get okay. I've given a lot of these. I've never received one.
Dave, why don't you stand over there? That would be...
They are beautiful. Literally.
What do you say, Lunenburg?
With an E.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
visit him at some point.
Okay. We will come now to public comment. Do we have any public comment from the board this evening?
I do.
You do? Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I just have a brief one in regards to sort of open meeting law and open government in general. I was questioned by a citizen this weekend why I wasn't more prepared or why I had a lot of questions about earth removal permitting at our hearing. And I just wanted to briefly say that we're supposed to deliberate and conduct our questions and participation in a topic at an open meeting, so that there's an agenda and that anybody who wants to hear it or participate in it can come. And so sometimes asking questions here and doing the business here doesn't mean we don't prepare or we don't think or we don't care. It's just in open government, this is where I'm supposed to bring my questions. And so I just wanted to say that in terms of people who maybe haven't studied open meeting law or open government. We're really supposed to deliberate, discuss, and inform ourselves and each other together as a group. And so bringing questions and input and insight here is where it's supposed to happen. That way it's documented, it's in minutes, and everybody can access the process. And so I just wanted to say that. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier last month that I would spend a couple minutes and just try to highlight during Black History Month a few people who've made some significant contributions over time. So today's will be brief, and I'm going to focus on James Baldwin, who lived from 1924 to 1985 and was an American novelist, playwright, essayist, poet, and activist. So James Baldwin knew it was his job to reveal the truth about his race, the truth about his country, the ugly truths of racism, poverty, and inequality that plagued the United States during his lifetime. He confronted American racism with fearless honesty and courageously explored homosexuality through his literature and in his life. And he did it with style. His brilliant prose combined his own experience with the best and worst of that of black life around him. The joy, the blues, the sermons, the spirituals, and the bitter sting of discrimination. As he said in his essay, The Creative Process, a society must assume that it is stable, but the artist must know and must let us know that there is nothing stable under heaven. The work of Baldwin, a product of Harlem, New York, and a citizen of the world, consistently reflected the experience of a black man in what was considered white America. His travels to France and Switzerland only nuanced his understanding of the social conditions of his race and his country. Although written abroad, his first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, published in 1953, illuminated the struggle of poor inner-city residents and drew on the passion of the pulpit. His collection of essays, The Fire Next Time, explosively represented black identity, just as the country was coming to terms with just how much white supremacy was in its DNA. Giovanni's Room dove straight into the taboo that was homosexuality, elevating the notion of identity through sexuality and socioeconomic status without ever mentioning race once. As an impoverished black gay man, Baldwin was asked if he felt he had a bad luck of the draw. In fact, he believed he'd hit the jackpot. His identity informed his artistry, and his artistry strove to represent every individual whose access to American civil liberties was hampered by race, gender, sexuality, and socioeconomic status. Baldwin knew that as an artist he was among a breed of men and women historically despised while living and acclaimed when safely dead. So he unapologetically implored a nation to see its true self through the beauty of its most marginalized. The truth of his words is not a history lesson of American culture gone by. It is a reflection of a country alive and in the here and now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment from the board? Public comment from the public. Mr. Rabbit. Wow. I'll let you know when I say it reluctantly. I may even say that comment myself, so.
There you go. Okay, first of all, thank you very much. My name's John Rabbit. I live at 314 Townsend Harbor Road, and I'm also known as Jack. I'm coming before you with regard to the 1325 Mass Ave project, the earth removal project. And I'm not coming to ask you to reconsider, even though I'm asking the other boards that are in consideration to think about these points, and perhaps even all come together for a larger discussion, because this affects our town moving forward in a pretty dramatic fashion. First of all, I want to put a disclaimer in there. I am a member of the Conservation Commission and Stormwater Committee, and a proud member. These are currently under discussions, and I won't touch those, so I'm not speaking to that. I'm not speaking as a member of that. I've also been a member of the Finance Committee as well as the Board of Health. I'm no way affiliated with anything. I'm speaking as myself. Okay, now for those who don't know me, I make my living as a quality guy. You know, essentially, that's what I do. I assess risk. I look at the risks associated with something. What is the likelihood that the risk occurs? What is essentially the probability it's going to occur? What is the impact of that risk? And then I try to look at what I can do to reduce that risk, right? And at the end of the whole thing, I end up with a number, a thing called a risk number, and then we take actions to try and drive that down, right? And right now, I'm seeing, I think, a considerable number of risks that need to be addressed and considered with regard to attempting to remediate it. I'd just like to share some interesting notes with that regard. First of all, the people that are doing this are very, very nice people. They really are. You know, they're trying to make a living like the rest of us, and they saw an opportunity, right? They've been wonderful members of the community. And as he said to us when he came before our board, in public record, is that if I'm not the person standing in front of you, I can guarantee you that somebody else will be standing in front of us and saying the same thing, right? So it's not a function of greed, or he's being very, very nice in this process. He's a good person. So please don't anybody think about vilifying him as a result of that.
I'm going to interrupt for a second.
Sure.
For two reasons.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I know you want to wander, but please speak into the microphone.
Okay.
And number two, this is public comment, so I don't want this to be a James Baldwin short story. I want you to get to the point of what you're getting to.
The point is, okay, you got 5.9 acres, you got a 3-year permit, and you've got requests for material to be moved out. You've essentially got 6.5 acres, and the reality is the amount of material, while we call it an earth removal permit, other people would call it mining, or because it's surface removal, it's strip mining, okay? You're just taking material out, you're moving it to some other location. You're not digging a cellar hole or anything like that. So we have to consider that the fact that it's also a half mile from one school, and it's about a mile out of town center. There's 2 bordering vegetated wetlands, and for that matter, is an area of critical environmental concern. Only partial of it. And we as boards are trying to deal with that. But anyway, the top layer of that material is a thing called Paxton fine sand loam, right? It's and the material below it is a Quonset loomy sand in the group C. The reason why I bring these up is in terms of health, you worry about the size of the particle that can be blown around and its effect on the lungs and the residents. Essentially, I did 2 site visits as part of the Board of Health. Excuse me, not Board of Health. I'm in Conservation this week. Yeah, okay, Conservation. And essentially, we talked to the resident. Excuse me, I'll get back to the front of the mic. Thank you, Tom. I talked to the resident, and even they were saying, well, you know, this is going to make all sorts of noise and things. Who's going to wash my house? And that got me thinking, wait a second, you're right, this particulate matter that is now moving from one area over onto a neighbor's property. We do not allow people to change the contours of their land and dump their water on other pieces of property, right? But so we're now allowing people to move material and dump it up to one circular mile of that particular area. And the reality is I did some research on this as well, and it's the size of the dust particle, and this Paxton sand worries me. You know, it's the irritation, the eyes, the coughing, the sneezing. but the differences in size make the biggest difference at all. Those under 10 microns, or millimeters in diameter, or about 1/7 the diameter of a single human hair, they get trapped in your lungs, and some of the absolute finer particles become absorbed into your system, right? This Paxton material, as much as I can observe, and if you want, here's the data, does in fact do that, right? So now I've got a risk of potentially injuring people. And depending on the duration of exposure, the more likely they're going to be pulling this material into their homes, sleeping, whatever. So now I've got a risk that we need to figure out how to mitigate for health and safety reasons. The other part of it is, who else would be affected? I've got a half mile to a school. Well, by the way, these particular particle sizes affect infants, children, and teens, people over 65 years of age. That's you and I, Phyllis. Okay. People with lung disease, such as asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary COPD. People with heart disease. If you've got diabetes, you're going to be more likely to be affected by this dust, right? And so where does the dust come from? Obviously, you're digging it up, you're moving it, you're transporting it, you probably get it sitting there, and there's loads of ways to remediate that and reduce the possibility of injuring our population, right? The other part of it is we could be doing things. You're going to be driving down Route 2 and people are coming in, they're looking at, oh, look at this ecotourism, what a wonderful place. I want to live here because I've got clean air. And they drive down the road, and on the right-hand side, they look up, and there's a sand pit or strip mine or whatever you want to call it. So how is that affecting the values of our home? Right? Do people want to live here as much? Do they want to come and spend as much money? Because there's overwhelming data that says the cleaner the air, the longer you're going to live. And there was one 2016 study found that people age 65 and older in New England faced a higher risk of premature death from particle pollution. This is particle pollution. So what can we do? What can we do as a board? By the way, there's all sorts of dust control measures out there that we could be taking. I haven't necessarily seen all the issues yet, but I would urge all the other boards to take a real close look to see what we can do and remediate. I'm a quality guy. I just try to show you how you can do this and meet all the objectives of all the stakeholders. Not only just the owner, right, but the citizens, our kids, the animals, our God's creatures, our environment. There's ways to do this, and we've got to admit that, we're moving into the future. We do need that capacity to put more facilities in here in terms of manufacturing or commercial. We do need that, but we can do it smart without jeopardizing the health of our own citizens and making sure that we have the best economic impact. In closing, I would ask that you folks convene a meeting with all the key boards in town, conservation, zoning, planning, Board of Health, even bring the Finance Committee in here to get a conversation going. What is this going to mean to our town going ahead? And are there things that we can put in our bylaws such that this can't get out of control? Nor have I given up on the possibility that perhaps we will take those remediation issues and drive that risk number down. That's what it's all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Any other public comment from the public? You guys can stand up and just, instead of me calling, just get ready for the next person. So just come up in any order. Mr. Luck.
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. Relatively, hopefully this will be short. I'd like to take this opportunity, though, and take advantage of your huge viewership out there in the world to alert the public, and particularly those on or planning to be on sewer in the near future, to an important issue. The Commission has been struggling to maintain a full board for the last few years. With tonight, hopefully, Brett's appointment to the Sewer Commission by the Board of Selectmen and the Sewer Commission, we'll have appointed 4 of the 5 positions this year alone. They'll all be appointed to positions. And that, unfortunately, after varying amounts of begging and arm twisting of applicants, and I want to thank again Mike and Dave and John for coming out of retirement to help us out, because without them we wouldn't even have a quorum. Also a concern is the fact that of these soon-to-be 5 members, only 1 will actually be on the sewer. We'll soon again have 5 hard-working commissioners on board, but it is not clear how many will continue to serve after this May's election. I, for one, after 14 years on the commission, have decided to step down later this spring. I regret the timing and will miss it, but it's time. Unfortunately, I've been told that it's too late to get this opening onto the ballot in May, but due to the appointments this year, even without my opening, there'll be 4 commission positions out of 5 that'll be on the ballot. 1 for 3 years, 2 for 2 years, and 1 for 1 year. So you can easily take your pick, whoever wants to come join us. You have a good choice to choose from. Last week, in public comment, I alluded to an upcoming rate increase for sewer users. And hopefully this gets some people's attention. Although the budget is not set yet, I can tell you that to achieve a balanced budget this year, based on the costs that are currently being projected, there will be a significant rate increase, likely somewhere between 20 and 35%, perhaps even more, depending on decisions yet to be made. The Sewer Commission is unique in that it has the ability to control its costs and therefore rates more directly than any other board in town. It is up to the work and dedication of the commissioners how and what cost this service is going to be provided to those in need. I can't overemphasize the importance of these positions being filled with the right people and hope that more people who are directly affected by this service, those on sewer, will consider running for one of the Sewer Commission openings. Even if you're not on sewer and never plan to be, sewer can still have a significant impact on our town, on you and our town as a whole. The extent and location of the sewer system can have a profound impact on the town and its character, good and bad. Therefore, everyone in town has a stake and should consider running for the position or encouraging others to run, or at a minimum, become more engaged in what the commission is doing. Thank you.
Before you go, I have a question that you've been told, I'm assuming by the town clerk? that
Yes.
Because we haven't even had the caucus. How can it be too
I
late to
was
go
surprised.
on a May election?
There's some 60-something days that the position has to be open before election, and we don't make that
I'd like to
unfold.
know that.
I-
That doesn't seem plausible, being that the elections are, 3 months away? How could be 3 months away, be too late to open a position? But anyway,
Yeah,
I just figured I'd ask.
I would be asking if you asked, because that was the reason
Yeah.
I gave such much notice, so it could be on the...
Sure, well, and I thank you, because so many times people quit the week after the election, and then we have to appoint somebody. So I also want to, I never miss the opportunity to echo people who want to get people to step forward, because we really need volunteers. I say this every week. It gets to be old, but it really is true. A town of 11,000 people, we should be able to fill the positions we have in town, and to see the same people, and I thank the same people for coming forward. But it's really, it's disheartening, and in some ways, it's actually embarrassing that we can't get people to step forward and want to do the roles. So, Josh.
Mr. Chair, members. So I am here for 2 reasons. Firstly, on a very personal note, obviously I worked for Representative Benson when she was in office at our district office just across the street. I went to high school in the town of Lunenburg. I'm from Shirley. I was always that Shirley kid, rightfully so, though. But and it has been an absolute privilege to help the representatives serve the town of Lunenburg, and in some cases develop long-lasting friendships with the parents of kids I went to high school with, which is nothing to sneeze at, because they're wonderful people. I love this town. Like I said, I went to high school in the town of Lunenburg, and most importantly, I really appreciate you letting me stay in the district office after Representative Benson's resignation. I really want to thank you. Without batting an eyelash, without considering the situation, without even, taking into consideration what my situation might be or her staff's situation might be, it was, yep, go for it. They need to continue to serve the constituents in the district, and I greatly appreciate that. I am here on a second note. I'm not a resident of the town of Lunenburg, but I am the president of the Lunenburg Lions Club. So I am here on behalf of the club, given the jacket. I am joined here by the secretary, Corinne Scouten, and the membership coordinator, Eric Holt, in the audience. Speaking of parents of my friends. And so we come to you with sort of a fact-finding mission, A, and B, a request of sorts. The Lunenburg is home, at least historically, to Luther Burbank and the Luther Burbank House, the founder of what became the Russet Potato. At least that's the story I heard. The Lions Club, obviously with the great success of the Stillman's Fair, and unfortunately the situation that succeeded that, creating a fall fair. And in this capacity, one that would revolve around the potato. It is unique. It's not something I've ever heard of before. It's not something I've ever attended before, but given the fact that Lunenburg has this rich history, it's all but fitting. So the request is basically to have a potato festival. And it sounds, on paper, absolutely ridiculous. And when you say it out loud, it's even more ridiculous. But what I will say is that the club has done, I think, a great job of trying to put together a framework to bring to the board to sort of ask what the next steps are. We're looking at September 19th of this year. Unfortunately, given my, whatever you want to call it, I have not been able to speak to the chiefs yet about closing Memorial Drive. But given its proximity to the Burbank House, that Memorial Drive in front of the Eagle House, and possibly in front of TC Passios is the area that we're looking at. That being said, if there is, and this is sort of the fact-finding mission of it all, the possibility of an entertainment license, what that process looks like, what a one-day liquor license process looks like for the town of Lunenburg, about the possibility of using the restrooms at TC Passios. And so I wanted to sort of have your thoughts, hopefully garner your support, and see what the process is moving forward.
So, first of all, thank you for your service to the town through Representative Benson. You and I have spoken on many occasions, and I know many people in town, so thank you for being a location that was close. And, yeah, it was really an easy decision to let you stay on while we wrap things up. It made no sense otherwise. As far as your request here, what I would try to do is put what you spoke to us now on paper, on its face. It's something I can certainly get behind. As far as the particulars and the details, we'll have to iron those out. But if we start with a prospectus from the Lions Club about what you would like to happen, we could probably meet together and say, okay, how do we get this to happen? The licenses, you can talk to the town manager or Elaine Peterson, the selectman assistant and town manager assistant, and those are just one day. If it's a one-day event, it's pretty straightforward for both of those.
Okay.
As far as using the building, that I don't know that we've ever entertained before for an outside event, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't either. So I think we should start there.
Alrighty.
I think it sounds lovely. Thank you.
I hope so. That's the plan.
And it didn't sound ridiculous at all. It's a rural community. Having a potato fest sounds totally appropriate.
One of the possibilities is a potato pageant. You throw on a potato sack and or a hat, and you strut your stuff. And I'm not talking about you I'm talking about you.
Wow. Okay. Well, you personally, I have to dig through my boxes in my thing and see if I have old Mr. Potato Head parts, and I can maybe the originals when you had to actually use a potato.
Thank you very much.
Probably way older than you. Mr. Passios.
They should give away Mr. Potato.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Just a comment to add to the previous speaker's stuff there. I don't know how many remember, but we used to have a zucchini festival in town, and that went for many years.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think a potato festival is all that far-fetched. I'm come before you again this evening with an update on the Patrolmen's Association collective bargaining issue that I've brought up in the past couple of weeks. Just before the Finance Committee meeting last Thursday night, we got a determination back from Labor Council that, yes, indeed, it was a mistake that we passed over the article, and it does need to be voted on at town meeting. After some more back and forth with my contacts at the Department of Revenue, and I've been in contact with the town manager, and your chair is aware of those back and forths. I've copied him on it. There is some question as to whether this actually needs to be voted in a special town meeting rather than at annual town meeting. It's something that we used to do not so many years ago. Quite often, we would have concurrent meetings on the same day in May. It'd be in the same warrant booklet. We'd convene a special town meeting for 1, 2, or 3 articles to clean up things that needed to be adjusted in the present budget, and then we would close that and start the annual town meeting. There is some suggestion that that's the way to do it properly. That's still up for some back and forth discussion at this point, and I don't know how it will flush out, but we still do need to ratify that contract somehow on town meeting floor. Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Dave.
yes, we are looking into how best to do that, and yes, we used to have a special town meeting before annual town meeting, and if that's what we need to do, that's certainly easy enough to do.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Make town meeting longer.
Hello?
Hi, my name is Pam Anzaldi. I live at 70 Townsend Harbor Road. Last week, I was unable to come to your meeting, but I had an opportunity to watch your meeting via YouTube. And I know at the end of the meeting, Katie had requested that you revisit the process of granting permits, especially in the area of earth removal. Full disclosure, I am one of the 4 abutters to the 1325 Mass Ave project. I'm not here to go through it all again, but what I want to say is that when you had the hearing on the 21st, 2 of the 4 abutters were present, and they spoke. They shared their concerns and questions with all of you and with Dan Proctor and the engineers. One abutter was not able to be here, as you know, and sent a letter. The 4th abutter was never notified, new to the neighborhood. I was not able to be there because I was sick. When my husband got home that night, he shared what took place and shared his feelings afterwards. A couple days later, I had an opportunity to watch your whole meeting, and I had 2 takeaways. And because Katie really made a point last week of wanting to get better at this process, whether it be just granting a permit of any kind or earth removal. And I thought it was important that I share how it feels. I've never been involved in a permit process, either asking for one or being on the other side of it. But I think that this could be useful for all of you going forward. The first is, when people take the time to come to a meeting and they have the courage, and not all the abutters have courage, you need to know in our situation, to stand before you and speak. They want to be looked at and they want to be listened to. I know your job is difficult. It's basically volunteered, although you were elected. But once you're elected, you're supposed to represent all of us. All of us. And one of the things I look at is that there's no favoritism of any kind. You're just going to look at the facts, all the information, gather whatever you need to make the best decisions that you can make as a board. My husband came home that night and my neighbor came over the next day. They did not feel listened to by everybody. They felt like you just wanted to move on. Now, I'm aware you have a lot of things on your agenda throughout the year. You can't spend hours and hours. No one expected you to vote that evening. No one. This project for us is personal. There's a lot at stake. But even if I wasn't an abutter, I would still have these same feelings. It's an important decision that the 5 of you had to make. The second takeaway that I would share is that if you have members on your own board that really felt they still had more questions, really felt they still didn't have all the information, I think it's really important that all 5 of you take a step back and support each other and just hold back on making that decision. No matter what decision you're going to make, no matter what permit you're going to grant, there's going to be different parties involved. And some parties might not be happy and others might be. Regardless, people want to know that you thoughtfully made your decision. And that's what I wanted to share with all of you. And lastly, Phyllis, I don't know you, but I want to thank you for all the years of service to this community. I understand there have been many, and I appreciate you stepping up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Pam.
you very much.
7:10, Lunenburg Cultural Council Arts Festival approval for June 13th.
Hi, you're going to have to excuse me. I'm sick, but I wanted to. So, yeah, no. I'm like sequestered in the back. Hi, I'm Laura Brzozowski, 21 Francis Ave. I am the chair of the Lunenburg Cultural Council, and I am here to ask your permission if we can throw a third annual Lunenburg Arts Festival on Saturday, June 13th. Same hours, similar structure. I think we're going to change the layout a little. We kind of do it a little different every year. Yeah, I've talked to the public safety officers. They're on board. We're going to shut down Memorial Drive. Have 2 stages alternating with musical and dance acts, and at least 1 food truck.
So as one person, I have no problem. I enjoyed it last year. I just would ask that, I think there's probably some paperwork to fill out for us to
Yeah,
approve.
and
So in principle, with what you're asking, I have no problem with, but I just, before...
Typically, I like you guys to vote on it as a town event, and then I'm on your insurance.
Right, and in
So,
order for us to
yeah.
vote on it, we need official paperwork. So we
Okay.
can say, yes,
Okay.
speak either for or against it right now, but officially, we're going to need
Okay.
the application to whatever we did last year.
Okay, the
Okay,
entertainment.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the Lunenburg Cultural Council's Art Festival for June 13th contingent upon the filling out of the paperwork.
But we have we have no paperwork to approve. We just have somebody asking for a date. We don't know what the
She's
hours
looking
are,
for
what
our,
the
I
time
think she's
are.
looking for our support.
Yeah, I'm willing to give her support.
So I just made a motion to support it.
Wow. I think process is not a strength.
Is that not
sometimes.
okay?
No,
I think that's why you're here, yes?
No,
So we support what you're doing, and I wholeheartedly support what you're doing. I think that as a matter of process, though, I saw this on our agenda, and I figured that something would be updated, that there was maybe a form missing.
I have the flu right now, so.
That you're even here. But I support it, but I certainly know that we have to look at the correct process, the paperwork, before we can.
Okay, so
vote.
you want the entertainment license filled out?
Yeah, just like last year, just
Okay,
same thing
last
with...
year we did the entertainment license in May.
Okay.
Right, well, so, I mean, if you know you want this day, you can do it now, because I don't think anything's going to change on the license. That way we have something to approve, except something other than a verbal request.
Okay.
Even if somebody wants to do a boot drive in town, we ask them for a form that asks to do a boot drive in town.
Okay.
But we do, I support what you're trying to do.
Yes, absolutely.
May I make a motion that we support, that we're giving our support for the 3rd annual festival for June
You
13th?
did make a motion. Does anybody want to second the motion?
What is the motion?
Just that we support this event contingent upon the filling out of the paperwork.
So we support the event.
Yes.
I would second the motion to support the event.
Well, hold on.
But,
That's not what she said. So if you can state your motion so you know what you're seconding.
okay.
Okay, I amend anything I said prior to what I'm about to say now. I would like to make a motion that we are in support of the Lunenburg Cultural Council's 3rd annual art festival for June 13th, contingent upon the filling out of their paperwork.
Guess I don't know what contingent upon that last part.
That means if she fills out the paperwork.
But it's not an approval.
She just wants our support. I make a motion that we support her event. We've done stuff like this before.
Yeah, we can verbally support the event. We don't need a motion for that. Everybody, I think, is supporting the
But I
event.
feel like she's here for something formal or she wouldn't be here. I'm confused.
Don't worry about it. Ugh, it's okay.
I'm so sorry that you're here tonight. Hope you feel better.
$7:15.
There was a motion, and Phyllis, did you second
Did you
it?
second that? No. No, she didn't.
Okay. And then, if I don't mind throwing in, we have another cultural council thing on our agenda. Did we want to do that, or no? We've lost it. Okay, never mind.
Do we have Carrie Ann Kimball here? Okay. I'm
It's
sorry
okay.
that your chair is ill, and we waited already an hour, but we might as well jump to you, since I've just called your name here, so.
Hi, I'm
Can you
Carrie
introduce yourself?
Kimball, 778 Page Street, Lunenburg, Mass. And,
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
sure. Currently, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've been home for about 5 years now. Prior to that, I did 14 years in payroll, so finance. I'm looking to go back to work probably within the next year or two, full-time. But until then, I'm home with the kids. Currently, I'm a catechist at St. Boniface. I teach first grade. Yep. And I'm just looking to get more involved with the town. So,
So you applied for the Cultural Council, which is
so my friend Laura said, you know, hey, I know you have a background in finance, and would you be interested in looking into the treasurer for Cultural Council? And I said, yeah, definitely. And I know that it's mostly filling out paperwork for grants and whatnot, but I'd love to keep the Arts Festival running, because Lord knows we've lost a few things in town, and I'd like to keep as many fun things in town for my kids. I have a child in 3rd grade and a child in kindergarten, so the more we can keep in town, the better. And I'd like to think that I'd be a little bit creative and try to figure out a way to, I don't know, to make it work.
Sure. That sounds
And
good.
possibly even make it profitable, but that's being ambitious.
You met with the Cultural Council, is that correct? Or you,
I met with some members,
there's some members?
not all. Yep.
And you have an endorsement here from Minna Schulten.
Mina is not here.
Mina?
I believe, I don't believe she's here, no.
If I mispronounced her name, I apologize. So it says, Kerry has the endorsement of the Cultural Council. We voted on it last meeting. We received this last Thursday, by the way. Thank you for sending this along. So you have their approval.
Awesome.
I would ask the board if they have any questions.
I would make a motion.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering.
I would make a motion that we appoint Carrie Ann Kimball to the Cultural Council with a term to expire June 30th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you
Good luck
very
on the
much.
council.
Thank you so much for volunteering. I was a stay-at-home mom for 14 years. It was my greatest joy and a lot of work.
A lot of work.
And we look forward to the Arts Festival.
Yes, I can already, yeah.
Contingent upon your paperwork.
Yes, which I will get on. Right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for stepping forward.
Okay, 7:15, joint meeting with the sewer commissioners to mutually appoint to the sewer commission vacancy until the next annual election. So we have an applicant, Brett Ramsden, and we have the 3 members of the sewer commission.
Mr. Chairman, Carl, 50 Sunset Lane, I'd like to call the Sewer Commission meeting to order. In attendance is Dave McDonald, John Reynolds, and myself. We have a quorum.
So now speak to the applicant.
I'd just like to introduce Brett Ramsden. I've known him for a few years now, great guy, but he's been also coming to our meetings recently, so has already been getting involved and has already asked some good, hard questions and made some good suggestions and, helped us out already. So I think I can speak for the commission that we strongly and unanimously support Brett's position.
I would ask Brett to please come forward here. So if you would introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brett Ramsden. I'm a local stonemason Been in town for 15 years now. Fell in love with Lunenburg. And it was a little unexpected, but someone inquired that I might be interested in joining the sewer commission, and after attending a few meetings, I found it intriguing and something I'd like to learn more about and try to make the best decisions we can together and keep the system running smoothly and effectively.
Is it your intention to run for the position?
It is.
Okay, so they've asked you. Run in May. Since
I
you're
was
going to be
hoping
an
to.
appointment until May.
Yeah. Well, that's what I need to do.
Right. But you intend on running in May?
If I need to run, I will run. I was under the impression I would be appointed.
Well, you are appointed until the next election, which is...
Oh, okay.
Right.
Got it.
Given all the
I will be
vacancies,
running.
though, I think you're probably going to be okay.
Shoo-in.
Sorry for the confusion.
No, that's fine.
I move to appoint Brent Ramsden to the Sewer Commission.
Second.
All those in favor, let's just go down the line here, because we're going to have the sewer commission do it too. So Mr. Jeffries?
Aye.
Mrs. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid?
Aye.
Mrs. Luck?
Aye.
Aye for me. If I counted correctly, I think that's unanimous.
Can't turn back now.
Good luck.
Thank you so much for volunteering.
Thank you so much, and I know you'll have a good group of people to really show you the ropes there.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think we're supposed to tell you to go to the town clerk's office and get sworn in.
Yes, you have to get sworn in tomorrow. Go to the town clerk and get sworn in to the office tomorrow. That's the whole raise your right hand thing.
Piece.
Yeah. You got it.
Yeah.
Does the cultural council person has to do that too?
Yes, and Kerry, you have to do the same thing. Okay, 7:20. We have the finance director with the second quarter financial report. What is the state of our union?
Oh, the state of the union is right where we want it to be right now.
All right.
In Lunenburg, anyway.
What is the state of the
That's the
town?
only
I guess I
part that
should have said
matters.
that, yes.
The state of the town is good. Okay, this is just going to be a quick summary of where we're at halfway through fiscal year 2020. On the revenue side, to date, we have collected $22,304,174, or 52% of our FY20 estimates. A summary of the individual categories would be for local receipts, we've collected 34.21% of the total estimate for FY20. We have several categories within the grouping that are actually running above target, and of those categories is other excise, which is our local option meals tax, and we've collected 88% of that estimate. Fines and forfeits, we've collected 109% of that estimate. Penalties and interest, we've collected 70% of that estimate, and investment income, we've collected 89% of our estimate. Motor vehicle excise collections are currently at about 17%, but that is because the majority of this tax isn't committed until the third quarter of FY20. So we should see those revenues come in the next quarter. For taxes, at this point in time, we've collected $13,792,598, which is 49% of our estimate for FY20. And for state aid, we've collected $4,517,142, or 50% of our estimate for state aid. On the expenditure side, we have expended or encumbered $19,504,504, or 51% of budgeted expenditures through December 31st. And all of our expenditures are at the level that they should be at this point in the fiscal year. And if you were to look at the individual departments within the report, there are some departments that show more than 50% of their budget used, but that's because departments open up blanket purchase orders for the year for certain things such as supplies. So those become part of the funds that are encumbered, but the actual expenditures are still only at 50%. That's about all I have to say right now, unless you have some questions for me.
So before I open up to questions, I have one question. So your overall executive summary is what your comment was at the beginning. So in your eyes, we are where we should be at this point. There's nothing that's glaringly out of whack here.
No, not at all. Like total revenues are at 52% and total expenditures are at 52%. So we're right where we should be at the end of December.
Anybody have any questions for the finance director?
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
It's never very, I mean, this is, for me, it's my job, but for you, it's probably very dull.
It's never. When you're in front of us giving these reports, I'm at the edge of my seat.
I know, I can tell.
I just remember when we used to put you on the end of our agenda so you could sit here.
Well, then they really must have been
But
bored.
I will say what's challenging, see, they made us stay awake because in the Google Drive where these documents are, the fact that you print landscape things, but we see them portrait.
Oh, really?
Makes them impossible to read unless you start doing this.
Well, I'll have to change that to
Yes.
portrait so that when you go to your Google Drive, you can read the reports.
Right.
I'll do that. I can do that. I have the time.
I appreciate that, thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, current business, discussion about prioritization of fiscal priorities in FY21 to provide the state delegation. So the town manager put something in the drive just today. She did not have a lot of time to prepare this because the request came in middle of last week, my understanding, basically 2 days before her vacation. So I do appreciate her putting them down, and I apologize for those who commented that they would have liked to have gotten them in advance. I think she'd like to have provided them in advance. But we have them here. So she has, well, I'll just read her letter. The state has begun their budget process for FY 2021, and as they have done in the past, our legislators reach out to see if there are certain budget priorities that we would like them to advocate for funding as earmarks in the state budget. I received a request from Representative Hayes' office last week to forward our budget priorities as he has a meeting tomorrow, February 19th, with Chairman Miklowitz to discuss the budget priorities for each of the communities he represents. As stated in my memorandum to the board last year, the list I submitted for FY20 included some projects that were submitted as part of the facilities bond bill. Understanding that the governor has yet to release a funding mechanism to fund those projects as part of a bond bill, we have a better chance at them getting funded as earmarks. After review of the projects that are in the 2018 Capital Facilities Bond Bill, the 2018 Economic Development Bond Bill, our future capital needs, the discussions that have taken place around particular buildings, and speaking with department heads, below are my recommendations to submit to our state delegation for our FY 2021 budget priorities. Number one, $127,000 for fire alarm upgrade at the Lunenburg Primary School. Number two, $180,000 for firefighting turnout gear that would provide each firefighter 2 sets of gear so that after each fire, gear is cleaned of hazardous materials. The fire department is also submitting an AFG grant for this same request. Number three, $125,000 for the installation of a new parking lot adjacent to the Eagle House that would create additional safe parking spaces off of Memorial Drive. That is currently in the capital plan under FY22. Number four, $355,000 for hazardous materials abatement and demolition of the old primary school building and feasibility and design for future use of the space. $40,000 for feasibility and cost estimate to demolish the old primary school building and design for future use is in the language of the facilities bond bill, given a 2% inflation to this figure and a 2% inflation from Vertex figure in the 2018 report. Number five, $770,000 for abatement of asbestos at the TC Passios, which is currently in capital plan FY20, but has not been funded. And that is 2% was added to the Vertex figure given in the 2018 report. Number 6, $175,000 for the construction of a records room on the second floor of the Public Safety Building that would comply with regulations for police records retention, which is currently in the capital plan under FY22. And number 7, $40,000 for the installation of the new LED light fixtures at the library, which is currently in the capital facilities bond bill, but has not been funded yet at the state level. The list that was submitted last year included the following. I'll just briefly say that $45,000 for the HVAC upgrade at the senior center, $25,000 for the replacement of the handicap ramp at Town Hall, $27,000, sorry, $40,000 for the installation of new LED light fixtures at the library, $50,000 for planning assistance to update the town's outdated ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, $755,000 for the abatement of asbestos at TC Passios, which is basically submitted again this year at a higher number, and $220,000 for the installation of new fuel tanks at the Department of Public Works. We ended up receiving earmarks in the amount of $40,000 for the HVAC upgrade at the senior center, $27,000 for the replacement of the handicap ramp at Town Hall, and $160,000 for the fuel tanks. We have been able to apply for DLTA funding to accomplish the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan through Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. They were before us last week. And the 2 other projects are being carried forward in the FY21 budget priorities list as continued needs. I would request that the formal list be prioritized by the board, as our legislatures will likely ask for our top 3 priorities. So, that last sentence being the request from the town manager, I will open it up if somebody wants to offer their input for prioritization of those 7 projects that the town manager listed. If there is a project not on here that you want to add.
Do we know about, I know that they funded 3 projects last year. Do we know, and what did they, it was like 227K is what we got last year. Do we know if it's a dollar amount, or if it's, how they view our...
There is, yeah, I don't believe there's anything in particular that the legislatures put in what their prioritizations for their districts are, and there's no number involved. I mean, sometimes the state has funding and they're addressing one thing over another, so what happens at the state if they want to put more money into infrastructure projects or, hazardous material removal? There's no way for the state legislatures at this point to know. So they put in the projects, and as things happen, they try to push them.
It's also what sounds good, what they think is a good project, what they think can move forward. So,
Yeah, but like...
a lot of subjectivity to it. Whether we think it's a great project or not doesn't mean they think it's a great project.
Right, like when the Complete Streets people came before us, they said, these are the kinds of things you're looking for, so if we want to be successful, this is kind of the way we should, where we should aim. So I was wondering if the state legislators...
No, I understand what you're saying. This is not as targeted. This is much more free-form, I think, and I think, they use these as incentives in the State House to fund project. I don't even know they're necessarily by need. I think they try to give earmarks across the state to different communities.
I mean, it looks like last year we got a couple small ones and one reasonably big one, so that's a smart thing to do.
Maybe.
Come forward with a couple small ones and a big one in our top 3.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may recommend maybe number 4, since it's in line with our goal.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be the top one.
Makes sense.
I agree.
I would concur.
I can support that as well. I also suggest number 3, which is the $125,000 for the installation of new parking adjacent to the Eagle House.
Where is that?
I think that's still too fuzzy. When we talked about this before, I said, gee, isn't there any land behind the senior center that could be used? And they said, I don't know, I don't think so. I mean, really?
Yeah, where is this parcel?
That's not enough, there hasn't been enough study done on this.
Well, at least not that's been presented to us. We don't,
Right.
somebody might have done some thought.
Yeah, but it hasn't been verbalized.
Yeah, my understanding is we're talking about the space near the playground.
Right. So do you want a parking lot right next to the playground?
Is it on the other side of the playground?
No, it's like the Eagle House, then the parking lot, then the playground. So it's
That
not...
would be
it's-
$125,000 too. That feels,
Right. It seems like too much money. It doesn't
Well, we're
seem well
asking for
thought out
more.
yet. And, you know, there is adequate places to park now. They can park
Damon,
up.
since this is on a capital plan, are you familiar with this request?
No, all the departments list projects for, 5 to 10 years out, depending on what we ask them for, but we don't get a presentation on every project that's out. We usually get the presentation for what's
Okay.
immediately in front of us.
Fair enough.
Well, my support for this really is the last meeting that I had with at the senior center. The concern that was raised by the board there was about the parking situation that's over there, that there's not enough parking for their members, that the parking along Memorial Drive is difficult. So it would seem that if we're potentially planning to have this as a capital plan for fiscal year 2022, that if the state will earmark some funds to save us some money, I think that would knock out two birds.
So we have 7 on this list.
I'd also
I'm going to say
support
that we should
5.
recommend 4, prioritize 4, and therefore not prioritize 3, just to make
Feeling-
this simple.
I also support
what about
5.
number 1, because it's an upgrade to a fire alarm system at a school? Feels like a good one.
But that was very odd to get that message in the Google Drive today. Didn't even say what the date was or who the author was. It was just like, yikes, we've got a terrible problem with the fire alarm system in the primary school. Well, when did this terrible problem develop?
And if it's super terrible, maybe we shouldn't wait for state funding, and maybe we just need to fix it.
It seemed odd to me.
I know they have alarm troubles at Turkey Hill. Sometimes it actually, like, one time the alarm system actually caused a fire when my kiddos were there. That was the fire.
You know, and I'm certainly not aware of that, and I haven't heard anything about this before.
Well, first of all,
today.
it's from the school facilities director, so it's from John Londa. It's not signed here, but that's what she says in her document, that's where it's from.
And it doesn't have the date? I mean, it says he was going to get a budget estimate by February 15th, so somebody must have gotten this
Well, it's,
a while
since it
ago.
mentions the date in December 2019, and that's the last paragraph, so it was written after that. So it's in the last 2 months.
Yeah, I mean,
Seems like it's coming out of nowhere.
I would lean towards items 1 and 2, because I know that those are items that will show up on the capital plan no matter what. I mean, we're going to have to fix a fire alarm if it's as bad as John's saying.
Yep.
And the firefighters need turnout gear.
But how did the fire alarm situation get so bad so quickly?
I get what your question is, but that's not what our focus is on this. The thing is, it is in that position. We can certainly ask John Londa. Nobody in this room is going to know the answer to that question. There's nobody in attendance who we have that can answer that right now. So the focus is it a priority or is it not a priority? We can look at how we got there at another thing, and I think we should, but the questions you're asking, nobody here can answer.
Sorry.
No,
Does
I'm
anybody
just
have
saying.
any that aren't here? I mean, we didn't have a lot of time to brainstorm, but can you think of anything?
No, I mean, it's tough to just pull things out of the air, too, because it needs to have some number associated with it and some
Yeah,
plan.
you know, it's too bad this is, wasn't on an agenda earlier.
I
mean, we know that this is coming, right? It comes up every year. We had a meeting in January, there was 2 items on the agenda. We had a meeting in February, there were 2 items on the agenda. Why couldn't we, this
Spend
had
a
been...
half hour brainstorming these things, yeah.
It's due tomorrow.
Well, you still, sure, we could talk about it earlier, but these are all things built off of either capital requests or department head requests for a project in need in town. It's not us spitballing because we don't have the ability to assign a number to it or do the engineering for it, to put a number to it and a plan together to be feasible about it.
We could have been more thoughtful, though, if we had more time. That's all.
So she wanted 3 for
She
tomorrow?
said prioritize 3.
Yeah, I mean, the representative is wanting 3. I mean, that's what her thoughts are basically channeling the State Representative Hayes' request.
Do we feel good about 4, 2, and 1?
I'm certainly for a 2 and 1. Is everybody else for a 2 and 1?
Let's put 4 first. 1 second and 2 third. Does that sound right?
That's fine with me.
I feel good about that.
Does anybody want to put a 4th just as a,
I noticed
We could put the LED lights.
Yeah, it
but
was
it's a
on
small
last year,
number.
and it's little.
It's a small number.
yeah, is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
All right, so 4217, it sounds like a great
4-2,
TB bet.
4-2,
4127.
4-1-2-7. Okay.
All right.
Congratulations.
I will communicate this to Representative Hay tonight.
Thank you.
So that he can have it for his meeting tomorrow. All right, here we go. Discussion about earth removal permitting. This was asked to be an agenda item, so.
This was last week's notes?
It was requested by a member to have this as an agenda item to discuss.
Okay.
And it fit in well with this week, so I will open it up for discussion where people would like to start. Before I started, we did get a draft from the planning board about their earth removal bylaw, because remember, they are working on this.
Yep.
They have they have their hearing, they had their hearing, correct? No, when is your hearing?
March 3rd, I think.
I'm going to try and stand over here so I don't get near the sick microphone.
Just speak up, that's all.
The planning board will be having a public discussion. It's not a hearing because the planning board doesn't have hearings on general bylaws, that's zoning bylaws, on the 9th of March. Be towards the front of our agenda, which starts at 6:30. So you have that article. The planning board will also be putting forth an article to amend the existing bylaw to replace the selectmen with the planning board in the event that the proposed new article doesn't pass.
So there'll be 2 articles?
Correct.
Okay.
Revolving around
what
earth
Mrs.
removal.
Adams had.
Correct, and that was a
This board
discussion
is a
the board
suggestion.
had raised previous to that discussion.
I have a question. You know how there were several townspeople that were pretty outspoken about the permitting process? Have you had the opportunity to reach out to them
I
so
am
that
going to
they
be
can
sending
come?
the gentleman who owns the excavating business a copy of the bylaw with an invitation to attend the 9th.
Was he the only person who spoke up at that meeting?
He was the one who raised the majority of the concerns. The gentleman who spoke up about the lot that he owned, he and I had spoken previously. His issue was driveway, and that was something that was amended on the floor and is included in the new draft. He had a singular focus of a specific lot that he's, I believe, in the process of building.
Okay, I just didn't want it to be a big issue at
No,
this time.
and the planning board has brought that up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernie. Well, I think that I like to offer my thoughts and opinions up front because I believe I'm going to have a minority opinion. So first is that I believe right now this board has to decide earth removal permits. And then depending on the implications, then the process will go forward to either the Conservation Commission, if necessary, or to the Planning Board for stormwater concerns. So I urge that this board retain the ability to decide on earth removal permits. Now, the reason why I support that is that I think that when you're doing earth removal, it changes the nature or the character of our town, and that there are certain characteristics that this board should be able to look at, as we currently can, and make informed decisions about. For residents, and we had someone speak earlier today to this point, and abutters, that if you have one board that has the full authority to make the decision, then your opportunities for to get your grievances heard are minimized. Whereas I think when something as significant as earth removal, that residents should be afforded more than one opportunity to be heard about what their concerns are. In the case where we had this discussion last time, I was kind of on the fence about making a decision at that meeting, but once it seemed clear that the members of this board were making their decisions dependent upon what the other boards who still had to approve this would decide, I decided, in that case, to support that decision because I didn't think it was inconsistent with the bylaw as it stands. Certainly doesn't mean that I don't see problems with it, because I was not convinced it was going to pass the other boards, but I was sure that it met the requirements of this one. I would urge that we continue to hold on the authority to decide them, and that way a resident who's concerned can come here, get their concerns listened to, and hopefully acted upon, and then go to another board if necessary, and not just have one board make that decision with such a huge implication for all of us in our town.
I think that's kind of strange because of the way this board acted
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to come to us.
in the granting of the earth permit. I think, as the resident said, we just wanted to move on. Some of us just wanted to move on. You were unwilling to wait an extra week so Katie and I could get some questions answered. You just wanted it done. I think based on the way this board treated that earth permit, I'm embarrassed. I think we should get rid of it as soon as possible. We were not thoughtful.
I think we were thoughtful. I think that
you said yourself, you were on the fence. You said you weren't sure that the next boards were going to let it pass. Why not say, let's give the other boards a chance to hear it before we make our decision? I really, based on our performance in the last hearing, I don't think we should keep it.
We had a complete application before us. We had a letter from the land use director telling us what we should be looking at and what we shouldn't be looking at. Specifically, in his letter, said that the planning board review of the project had nothing to do with our approval of the project and was going to happen anyway and was a requirement. It had no reason to hang up our approval of the project, which is true when you have different boards reviewing it. You cannot and should not make your approval contingent upon another board's approval. That is not how the process works.
Well, when we grant an earth permit, what does that mean?
It means that it met the items that we were supposed to review.
Well, they have a criteria in which we could deny it, and if you recall, I went through those criteria and said to the applicant, these are the reasons why we can deny your application, and so, I'm trying to overcome every single one of them. And I could not get caught on any of and I asked the question, is this an and list or is this an or list? And the answer back to that one was that it's an or list. So from how it seemed to me, that we had 4 ways in which we could have denied it, and the applicant didn't meet any of those 4 requirements. If it was a question of, do I personally support it? No, I personally would not support it. If I lived next door to it, I would probably be right there complaining about it too. But that wasn't the question that was in front of us. It was here are the rules, doesn't meet them, and the answer was yes. But I think that we were deliberate. We spent like an hour and a half on this. We heard every single person who came up here and talked. And all the concerns about stormwater, I'm not qualified to comment on stormwater, but based on my understanding as a member of the planning board, I saw potential problems with stormwater. Conservation, I'm not a conservation member, nor am I qualified enough about those matters. So I couldn't really comment on them, but I certainly understood that there were implications given its closeness to wetlands. And I also know that our Conservation Commission is pretty rigid about adhering to it. But we weren't looking at all that stuff. We were just looking at, does it meet the requirements of the bylaw as it stands?
And we're supposed to condition it, which we did, and the land use director's letter to us told us the things that we'd want to look at to condition, which we covered.
And I would have supported a week delay, but I think that based on scheduling, we were looking at a 3 to 4 week delay, which I don't support that.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mrs. Adams.
Okay, so one, I followed this along because this obviously, the night we gave this permit really bothered me, so I watched the planning board meeting where they first covered it. I went to the continuation of the hearing. I went to the conservation hearing. I went on a site walk, et cetera, so I've immersed myself in it. In terms of our night with our permitting process, in terms of talking about we had complete information, et cetera, the plans we saw that night didn't have two of the abutters on it who were there with concern, so we did, at a, was it conservation meeting or planning, the engineer said, I now have included the abutters' properties, so they've updated and improved the plans for the other groups who are asking more questions and doing their due diligence. They also, I think it was Paula who initiated the discussion that it was an area of critical environmental concern, something we weren't told. It's in a Zone 2 or Zone 3, depending upon state versus town zoning of a watershed protection area, something that wasn't on the plans that we saw. So I don't think we had the complete information, because as I've followed along more, I've learned more, and the engineers have provided more. So I think we were lacking in some important information that night. In terms of saying that we followed our bylaws, there's a couple of things. One is that there's a section in here where we could have bonded the project, where we could have ensured that the stormwater drains were cared for. That's something that there may no longer be an opportunity for because we didn't require it. But in terms of what I go back to when I'm like, why is there a permitting authority for things? And the permit's really to protect people. Everybody goes back to those cliche examples, like I could have driven 80 miles per hour here, but I had to go 40. Well, somebody can develop this land, it's a commercial piece of property. Maybe they need to move 10,000 cubic yards. Should they be moving 50? So there's supposed to be limits and balance between what is necessary for one person in terms of being part of an overall community, and I think we really, really missed the point with the whole purpose for permitting authority here. The reasons for denial: no permit for earth removal shall be issued if such removal will endanger the general health, safety, or welfare, or constitute a public nuisance, result in the detriment to the normal use of adjacent property by reason of noise, dust, erosion, or vibration, result in traffic hazard in residential areas, or congestion and physical damage to public ways. So that's the reasons for denial. Now, we had a public commenter talk about particulate matter in the air. Particulate matter in the lungs is really endangers the general health. And when you're actually on site with some of the abutters' properties in terms of looking at where the digging's going to be and the scope of the digging. And I probably have more thoughts, but the applicant said that the amount he wanted to remove would take 3 years. We're giving a permit that expires in August. Why we gave permission for an amount that is so outside of what should be done in an operation in such a short amount of time is beyond me. We should have at least made it to a scope that was a little bit more appropriate.
Mr. Chair, if I may jump in.
Mr. McQuaid.
We give a permit that needs to be renewed every year, just like all the earth removal permits we give have to be renewed every year. It doesn't expire in a year. It comes up for renewal. The items that you just addressed were stormwater, which is the planning board's responsibility, and conservation and ecological concerns, which is the conservation's responsibility. We were looking at the other items you listed as far as dust and noise to the abutters. That was our job, to do that portion of it. If you looked at the application, read what they gave us, there's detailed, on the last page of their submission, detailed step-by-step construction sequence of how they're going to complete the process. The particulate matter, which the gentleman got up and spoke about, is in the topsoil. The topsoil will be removed and stockpiled per their notes, and if it's to sit more than 21 days, it will be loamed and seeded and watered to make sure dust doesn't fly. What's exposed is going to be sand, which is what they're really after, which is, again, watered down, which per their notes, and inspected weekly to make sure that the dust and erosion doesn't occur. I don't see what else, and the land use director, again, told us what we should be conditioning, hours of operation so the noise isn't a nuisance, looking at again, we talked about the traffic that you mentioned we're supposed to review. You break it down over 3 years, the numbers of trucks is not a significant impact on Massachusetts Avenue.
we didn't give a
However,
3-year permit.
he wants to do it in 1 year.
No,
No.
he clearly said he doesn't want to do it.
But we gave him
That's what he
permission to.
said, the Conservation Commission, he said he's going to try to get it done in 1 year.
Well,
If you follow along,
So
there's a
that-
lot more to it than what we got that night.
And I don't remember him articulating it was going to take 3 years. I remember Mr. Jeffries saying it would have to take 3
no,
years.
the applicant said that he wasn't going to look to do this in 3 years.
The abutters said they wished he would get it done in 1 year.
Well, it was mixed. One said
I think
yes,
they
one
said they wished
no.
it wasn't going to happen at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, to say we did a derelict in our review of this project is ridiculous. We had an application, we went through it, we had a letter from the land use director. If you read it, then you would have known what we should have been looking for, and we addressed the concerns.
Okay,
I think
so,
sometimes,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mrs. Adams?
In anything I've followed, both as a citizen and then as a selectman, I've never seen 100% of abutters speaking out together with the same message. And so I find following this project very unique, which is one of the reasons I've stuck with it. At the last planning board meeting, 8 people sat together and they made up 100% of the abutters. They're concerned about things like the detriment to the normal use of their property or the adjacent property. If you stood in their yard and saw what 20 feet away was and that it's going to be a strip mine or however you want to call it, it is going to destroy the abutter's quality of life. I think we had a responsibility to consider everybody around that site. And like I said, it doesn't mean that there can't be commercial development, and it doesn't mean there can't be a plan to use the property differently. But to give an earth removal permit this large, where I haven't seen anything like this, we haven't done one of these before, I think we rushed because I think we should have understood the quantity and whether or not there's dust controls. You can't remove 50,000 cubic yards and all these dump trucks and excavators without creating dust. I mean, even if you have dust, things in place, there's going to be, we were supposed to consider abutters, and this is a piece of property that, with the exception of the road, 100% of the abutting land is residential property. And so even if something's zoned a certain way, it doesn't mean you just toss aside the fact that there's residents there that were looking for us to help or at least understand the project, and we didn't give any time. I'm afraid we could get stuck with this, and we're not improving this, like, in their, if the planning board gets it, they have things about revoking the permit and things, and we don't have anything that even lets us alter the process.
Mr. Chair.
Hold on a second. I don't understand that last point. What do you mean you don't have you don't see anything that allows us to alter the process? It's a bylaw, so we can certainly propose.
No, I mean, they have like a section where they go into more detail about enforcing and violations and penalties. I think that's a protective measure for the abutters that we don't really have in our current bylaw.
Oh, so you're talking about now the one that's proposed by the planning board?
I'm saying I'm concerned if town meeting doesn't let them take it and doesn't vote in the new one, this one's garbage and we should fix it in case we're stuck with it.
Right, but we can only fix it because it's a bylaw by town meeting. But we're proposing something from town meeting. Have you read the bylaw that the planning board is proposing?
Yeah, I've been at the meeting while they built it.
Are you for it?
I'm for giving it to them, yeah.
No, but are you for their proposals of the way they're modifying the?
Oh, sure, I mean,
Okay, so there is a way to change it. It's up to us to convince town meeting to do it. There is no remedy for this board or any board if town meeting decides not to change the bylaw. So there is nothing, you can't change the bylaw because you want to. You can only change it through town meeting, and that we're already in the middle of the process.
I
to do
understand.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I've been following it very closely, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jeffries.
So, three comments. So the first is, our agendas are posted on Thursdays, and most of the files that support the agendas are uploaded for us. So prior to coming here on Tuesdays, I do homework. I read up on the issues that are going to be in front of us, and try to go out, and I think people who have had issues before us know that I do the door-to-door thing, and I knock on people's doors and I ask them questions if it's something that I need to know more about. And so, number one is I want to encourage our members to do their homework. And then number two is that I think that too often it seems like we're trying to rehash an issue that has already been settled. So, would I have voted for this land to be commercial property? No. No, I wouldn't have. But town meeting, who is the only body that has authority to decide the zoning map, did decide to zone this land commercial. So then I think we have to look at, well, what would commercial development on this land look like? In order to develop the land commercially, you have to regrade it. It's a hill right now. So it seems to me that the intention of the property, in order for it to be used for commercial purposes, would have involved some form of regrading. So, I think that we should not, in our role here, if I had it my way, as I said, I wouldn't have voted for this, my own opinion. I wouldn't have zoned the land commercial. But that's not our task. It's not to use our personal opinions and try to twist what is to turn it into something else. That, we have land that's zoned commercial. Our requirements are really clear. And when as I was hearing my fellow members feedback on this, I can't envision any circumstance in which that land could potentially be developed, which is what town meeting decided for it to happen. Again, not my choice. I certainly wouldn't want to live next to it. I didn't vote for that. But it is what it is. So I think it's kind of erroneous for us to then come here after town meeting has had the chance to vote on this, after town meeting voted down the articles that were submitted to them by the planning board and chose to keep it in our hands as is. I would encourage that we hear that, we listen to that, and we don't waste our time rehashing issues that have been settled.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Mrs. Adam?
Being zoned commercial, it could be used in its current topography as a commercial site. Somebody could run a commercial business out of the structure that's there. So the connection between it being a commercial piece of property and necessitating this enormous type of grade change, that's not true. It can be used commercially as is. It would be more difficult, or it could be used commercially with less removal. It's zoned commercially. You have things like the Puppet Theater down the street, the little commercial operation. They didn't dig out the earth to put it there, or at least not that I saw. So saying that the town zoned it commercial, and therefore you can remove 50,000 cubic yards, so those aren't
Zoning
related.
it commercial gives them the right to do all the things that are allowed in the bylaw.
They haven't presented a commercial plan. They've actually, at planning board, spoken out and said there is no plan. So right now, all they've asked for is to remove earth. And so
are you hoping that they're
is
going to spend $100,000, $150,000 to come up with a plan that can just then be shot down? I mean, no one's going to reasonably invest that kind of money to come before any board to get their approval. They're going to start with site development. Can I develop this site? Because that's step one. Before they get to here's a building that's going to be on it, here's a store we hope for it to be, the first step is site development. And that's all they're going to spend money on. And that alone is like $50,000, $60,000.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may have another comment. I think here we're really focusing on talking about the needs of the applicant and the developer, and I really set my mind on trying to figure out what's going on with the abutters and their rights in the process, and also the environment. There's a lot of really critical concerns with the environment, and that is in our bylaw in terms of the health and we keep going back to the applicant needs to do this and the commercial property needs to do that, but we're supposed to look at everybody in town, and the fact that the abutters are still so involved and there's so much going on, and the other boards are delaying it to learn more. I think we did something wrong because we didn't do our due diligence to fact gather, and why has everybody else waited to learn more and uncover more, and we just let it.
Everybody else has a different scope of work. We had a very finite thing we're looking at. We are not looking at stormwater.
Butter protection is a huge part of our bylaw.
We asked what a reasonable
The abutters aren't
inconvenience
super
could
happy
be.
with us, so we missed something, I think.
I mean, I take issue with the fact that I really think that in all these things that we should be sending out notices to abutters, because it really bothers me when you hear people who come here that say, I wasn't notified. I really wish that people would just make a point when they're planning these things to talk to the people who live next to it, because that seems to resolve the majority of the problems. But if someone comes here and says, I just don't want it, I don't want it next to me. I don't like this plan. I don't like it. I can hear that. I understand that. But what I'm trying to figure out is what can be done to mitigate those concerns, if anything. And so, and I asked the question that evening of what is a reasonable inconvenience? And the gentleman that was here told me what it was, and I made sure that everything that was said that night was in the conditions for the thing, that we listened to every concern that was voiced and it was accounted for. But I agree that we did not spend a lot of time on all these other issues, and I think it was with the understanding that other boards would. I mean, the planning board is made up of members that are really diligent about their work. I'm very impressed by how deliberative that body is, and nothing is getting to the planning board unless it's really right. So, I mean, I'm confident that anything that goes to them, that if there is a stormwater issue, it will be uncovered. That's not our job.
But they can't use their bylaws in circumstances to help look at endangering the general health, safety, or welfare, or the public nuisance. They can't use, or nor can conservation use their process to look at the detriment to the normal use of adjacent property by reason of noise, dust, erosion, and vibration. Those were for our consideration. And so these things...
Okay, besides don't do the project, what else could we have possibly done?
Well, hold on a second, before you answer that, so I keep hearing the same thing, and I just want to vocalize it. So my issue is, are you criticizing the permitting process itself, or are you criticizing the board members who didn't come to the same determination for the 3 reasons for denial that were available, which are very subjective? Are you just in general disagreement that you decided a way that 2 people decided a different way than 3 other people did? Or are you saying that the process itself is fundamentally broken and that a change in the process would correct it?
I think we didn't do a good job studying this. It was outside the scope of other earth removal permits in the past, and I just think we really missed an opportunity to protect abutters. I think the scope of the project is too large for the environmental concerns and for the close proximity of 4 abutters. I think we just gave a permit that was outlandishly large for the circumstances.
Okay, I understand that. And there are 3 people on this board who probably didn't come to that determination.
What's so frustrating is we always had Gary Rhodes' input to walk us through earth removal permitting and get us up to speed. And what I had requested at our hearing was just to have an opportunity to get input on the scope of the project and scope of, just the circumstances with the butters and get feedback from either land use or the building commissioner. And I don't know why, since that was sort of a norm in our past, why we didn't implement it with this one. I think it would have helped us maybe build some context around what we were doing. And then here we are tonight talking about it retroactively in a way where we can't improve upon the outcome, and we do have land use here. So it's like, it doesn't make sense to me why we couldn't have given it more time.
So your recommendation is that the process will take more time every time?
The planning board and the conservation commission have applied more time and the opportunity to study and think. I don't know why we didn't have a little bit more thoughtful discussion about the reasons for denial, which I think they're very clear, and I think we could have denied the permit based on how easily this circumstance fits into the reasons.
Postponing discussion, though, I mean, I think that evening, as I recall it, it was mostly 2 to 2, and I think I was kind of the swing a bit on that one. But it seemed pretty clear to me that whether we came back in 2 weeks or a month, that it was still going to be 2 people saying no.
I
So was
think
there a
that's, I think
circumstance in
that's
which you could have said
incredibly
yes?
unfair to assume that an answer
Was there a
was no.
circumstance in which you could have said yes, with what was being
Yeah, the
requested?
modification of the quantity or the proximity to abutters and maybe adding extra screening. I mean, one abutter who was on the plans was getting some trees, but the 2 abutters who weren't on the plans are getting no trees. And so I think we could have done a little bit better job understanding how we could help the abutters, maybe ask for some old growth trees to be left that may not be left. I think there's things we could have done to improve upon it. I find it offensive offensive for both the chair the night of the hearing and you just now to have an assumption of what my vote would have been, because once I had the right information and found the right balance, I don't know what my vote would have been, so I don't know how other people think they do.
I don't think I indicated at that
You did
meeting.
that night. You said it looks like it's going to be 3-2, so let's just do it. And it's like, it was an assumption of my vote.
I did say if we took a vote, it would be 3-2.
Yeah, you can't assume people's votes. That's unfair.
Did you vote
I think
no?
we can assume, though. I mean, we all have the ability to make
I
assumptions.
said that evening that the vote was obviously going to be 3-2.
I think you should take a vote to no vote.
We did take a vote. It passed 3-2.
But I don't think we should make assumptions. When people are just looking to learn more, I think that I believe in personal property rights and that it is a commercial piece of property, and I would have wanted to see somebody see their opportunity on that piece of property, but not in a way that may so significantly harm the abutters.
I'm not disagreeing with that point. I'm disagreeing with your characterization of that night of what I said. I didn't say you wouldn't change your vote. I'm saying we had 3 votes already, and I didn't see that we were going to lose one of the 3. That's what I said.
I always like to build consensus. I mean, I think that it's always good when we have our disparate views and try to come together on a resolution that works for everybody. But if we have members that are unbending in their perception of where they're at, then there's not much we can work with there.
Wanting to learn more isn't unbending. That's ridiculous.
In the end, for me, it's not like I didn't hear the people who were here as the abutters. I heard them very well. I looked them straight in the eye as they spoke and spoke to them each time. I came to a different determination than other members of the board, but given the number 8 reasons for denial, I did not feel it fit into that, and I felt that the project, as it was engineered, was appropriate for the place. That's what I came to. So I'm not dismissive of anybody. We're asked to make decisions. The decisions aren't always easy, but we are asked to make decisions.
It reminds me, Mr. Chair, that, part of what, my first time coming to a meeting, I stood right there to complain about someone trying to build a 200,000 square foot facility right next, abutting me. And so, it's not lost on me when someone has a concern about a development next door, because it reminds me of why I even got involved in the first place, was because, we all have our, concerns, and we want to make sure that the rules are followed correctly. I don't agree with at town meeting, I'm sometimes in the minority. I think people seeing at home see that I don't always agree with the majority of the people in the room. But we should apply the rules as they are, not as we hope for them to be, but as they are.
I would open it up if anybody in the audience would like to speak to this before we, please.
I just have a question for all of you. Seems to me what Katie Adams read about excessive noise and whatnot, those of you that voted to grant the permit, you don't see that those things are a problem. Excessive noise, excessive dust, our health, constant noise, and from what I understand, you granted 5 days a week, 8 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon?
Right, normal business.
And do you realize every single one of those abutters is retired, except for one, all retired? That's the first thing. So if this project goes through and all those things are happening, can the abutters call you up and ask you to come over and look and see and hear?
If you believe there's a violation
Right.
of the permit.
But this is the problem, and I do also want to share something with you, because I've been going to planning meeting, I've been going to conservation. You need to know, Mr. Proctor and the engineers have said, he told us, he came to our door the night after that hearing, you need to know that, a little late, and said, don't move. My plan is I want to be in and out of here in 6 to 8 months if everything goes well. The last 2 meetings, he said, best case scenario, he would like to be done no later than 1.5 years. Now, if it was dragged out, it's still going to be an eyesore to look at. Yeah, there might not be as many trucks, there might not be as much dust. That's not his plan. And you need to know, and I back Katie up on that because I was at those meetings. So, as an abutter, or even just as a citizen, it's real, and I know you're in a terrible position. I agree with Katie, you didn't have all the facts, and I have heard the facts changing. What I heard at your meeting, what Mr. Proctor said to me personally the night after the hearing, what's been said at planning, what's been said at conservation, there are little tidbits here and there that keep changing. It's really hard to discern what's really going to happen. So again, you said, if there's a violation, who do we call if the project goes through?
The building commissioners be in charge of enforcing any violations.
That's what happens in the process. Thank you.
And I think just having gone to the property, there's 3 homes that are right on the edge of this massive digging project. 3 people's homes. Like, it's...
You just keep saying it's a massive digging project.
Yeah, it is.
It's not. It is not.
Well,
I'm not going to try to classify, everyone has a different opinion of what massive is, but to call this a massive digging project or a strip mine is ridiculous.
You know, we're getting nowhere with you saying yes, Katie saying no. I heard Todd, the acting chair of conservation, saying it's a very big project. He just was astounded by how big a project it is. So people have different opinions on how big a project.
Okay, so if someone with conversations about the process, if someone wants to talk about the process and how we could have done better besides take more time, I'm happy to hear it.
You don't seem happy to hear it.
Because it's been an hour, we haven't talked anything about the process. We complained about what was bad about the last time, and I haven't heard any new suggestion besides go slower.
Yeah, we're rehashing. I mean, the land zone commercial, but it affects a lot of, people.
Well, the reason that this came up was you said, I think we should keep, the Board of Selectmen should keep this process.
Hold on. The reason this came up is why it's a topic is because Mrs. Adams wanted it to be an agenda item.
Thank you.
Just happened that Mr. Jeffries was the first to speak tonight. That's what he said.
And I think the reason I asked for it is because we're the permitting authority, and I don't think we have a good process or a good bylaw. So if we're not able to pass it along, it's our
So
responsibility.
for a process improvement, would you like the land use director and the building commissioner here next time we have an application? Would that make you happy?
I think that's what I'd asked for.
Okay, so have them here the first night next
And
time?
I don't think I'm looking for happiness, I think I'm looking for due diligence.
So is that part of the change in the project,
There were
in the
two
process?
business
Hold on a second. Is that a change in the process that the planning board is asking? That you said you were for the earth removal modification that they want to bring to town meeting?
I think you need to separate that. I'm not really focused on them getting it and what their bylaw is. Right now, I'm concerned that we're the permitting authority and how it impacts us if the town chooses to leave it with us. Want to do a good job at it.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that we lose the permitting authority.
I understand you can't guarantee that. I
So
understand that
I think
part.
we need to be prepared. I mean, we could have an earth removal permit. By the time, if it goes through town meeting, there's that period of time where it goes through the Attorney General for approval of our new warrant article, so on and so forth. So we could see a permit, even if we get rid of it at town meeting in May, we could see another permit come before us
Right.
well before we lose the permitting
But
authority.
this is the process right now. So therefore, there's no change that we can make in the process. Is the only thing you're asking that we have the zoning enforcement officer and the planning director?
Considering in all of our past experiences, we did have the input from the building commissioner. I don't know why that was vacant last time. So I think I'd like to see us have the input we had at all previous earth removal.
So is that a yes?
That was a yes.
It sounds like a yes, okay.
It's not saying I want something changed, it's saying I want to have what we did always have.
Well, what we didn't always have, because I can tell you before that, we didn't have those for earth removal.
While you weren't here, with all due respect, when we learned a lot about earth removal permitting and how much we're not following, et cetera, we learned a lot from Gary Rhodes.
We weren't following the
We
enforcement.
still aren't.
Weren't following the enforcement of them, not the initial permits, but, okay. So we can do that. We can make sure the next one we get.
I don't think that's, I mean, I don't think, do we have a majority support for that? Because that seems to be, what concerns me here is that town offices were open from 8 to 4 on Monday and from 10 to 6. And I'm willing to assume that this request was not submitted during that, 15 hours of business, that where it could have been. Like, we should not, I get concerns, but we, as elected officials, should do our homework. And when we come here, we should not be holding up applicants because we failed to actually read our materials prior to the meeting.
Okay, so I don't disagree with that.
a little
But I'm
accusatory.
going to ask why you would object to having the planning director. I personally am not saying that they're going to have, a lot of information that's pertinent to this, but I'm more than happy to have them here if that's what allays the fears and answers questions of other members of the board. So I'm trying to figure out why you might be against that.
Well, it sounds with your support that there is majority support for it, so I won't waste our time on this. But it seems that, we can ask these questions without asking town employees to be here at 9 PM at night on a weekday. And if we need them to be here at 9 at night, then we can certainly have them here. But it sounds as if these questions could be asked and answered during normal business hours.
See, that's where my public comment came from. I feel like we owe the applicant and the abutters to ask our questions, and although we can think and do some research ahead of time, asking for that information to be part of the open meeting, I think it helps assist everybody who's part of the process. Running around and trying to meet with people individually, it doesn't do the general body any good if I go get information from one person and then relay it here. I think it's a better statement if somebody gives the information here. Because the building commissioner is, as the previous speaker asked, the enforcement agent, I think having the enforcement agent of the permit we're issuing answer questions and be available makes sense to me. Just like in this bylaw, there's things we could have done with bonding the project to ensure stormwater management and such, and we didn't do it. And we had the ability to have done that and make the project better. So I think we didn't do a good job. We could have issued the permit just as we did, but bonded the project so that it would be better cared for to protect the watershed.
So if anybody wants to make a motion about having the planning director and the building commissioner here, this is the time to do it, if you want to make that motion.
Sure, I would like to make a motion that when we do earth removal permitting, we have the ability to ask land use director or building commissioner questions about the scope of the project at our meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion on that?
I share Michael's concerns and Mr. Bernie's concerns that he doesn't need to spend another night here, a weekday night to handhold us, but if that makes the process go better, then I can get on board with it, but
That is my reasoning, exactly. Because I'm going to push like,
Hopefully we give it
I
to
can
them.
say heck, I think. I'll push like heck to get the earth removal modification that the planning board is pitching, adopted, which I did, that the planning board didn't even push their own bylaw last time, which was embarrassing as a board, but I will push for that to be done, so this becomes a moot point. So
we've got a second?
yes, we did. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, so that's changing here.
Now, I got a call from my husband that the driving is terrible. He skidded going from Reservoir Road to Flat Hill Road, which are just two very straight roads, no hills at all. So we should try to move this along, because the driving is dangerous. You should probably go home.
Well, we have one last thing, so that is the discussion of placing the articles on the annual town meeting and the town election ballot for the prohibition of recreational marijuana. That was again asked for as an agenda item by a member of the board. So it is here before us.
I'll jump in and say I'm not interested.
Second that.
In my opinion, these articles were presented at town meeting. Anyone who was interested in this issue had plenty of notice and could have attended town meeting. There was obviously not enough support for these articles. There were not enough people in support of these articles attended town meeting to meet the two-thirds threshold. It is not the obligation or responsibility of the Board of Selectmen to put this back on the town meeting warrant. A citizen's petition, if there's a citizen that wants to put them on the warrant, then what is it, do you need 10 signatures to
It
get it on?
doesn't matter. There's a town ballot. You can't get these on by initiative. You can't get ballot questions on by initiative.
Oh, okay.
We'd have to agree.
Board of Selectmen has to approve them.
Oh, all right, thank you for clarifying that. I feel like the voters have spoken, they spoke at town meeting last year, and that there has been no outcry, no one's come to our meetings to express their dissatisfaction. It seems to be a moot point, and I would not be in favor of putting this on the town warrant or ballot.
Mr. Chair, the reason I brought it up is because we know that they didn't make it to ballot because of an error. So we lost an opportunity. We found out about the lost opportunity at town meeting. So it changed the way those articles were digested, and we started amending them on the floor, understanding that prohibition wasn't possible last year. So we couldn't sit there, those of us, I had worked on prohibition for about 2.5 years. I couldn't sit there and advocate for the legislative body to support the prohibition articles so that it could go to vote. That was sort of the intent, so that we can get it to vote. If we pass both the bylaw, the goal was to pass the bylaw and the prohibition articles, because then both could move forward and the vote would decide. That was sort of the plan of it all, was to get it out to vote. And we found out, like, during the meeting, that the ballot questions didn't make it. And so during the meeting, we learned that prohibition wasn't a path last spring, and it never made it to vote. And so I was just looking to reconstruct all of the work that had gone into getting it to a vote. It was the last planning board article, public comment of one of the members. There's some interesting developments in terms of looking at sort of some of the unintended consequences of zoning marijuana. There's a piece of property right over the border in Fitchburg that used to be like a Fallon clinic. And an organization was looking to move into that building, and they have a child care facility as part of their organization. And child care facility can't be near marijuana. And so, in reverse of what you'd expect, if a child care facility already existed, then marijuana can't operate near it. But then, once you put marijuana somewhere, that prohibits other businesses from being able to operate near it. So it almost works in this, like, reverse magnetic way that, like, once you allow marijuana, you push out other uses that involve children. And so it was sort of a tragic outcome for this building that may have finally seen new occupants. They can't, because their child care facility can't operate with the marijuana store across the street. And so there's a lot of things that at first it seems like to some people a positive to bring higher drug use into a community. I see so much negative to it, but what I really like is democracy, and we miss the opportunity to put it out to vote. And I think it's great, because if overwhelmingly people say, I'm in support of it, then we have that, and we move forward with that. If everybody comes out and says prohibit it in Lunenburg, we have that. I don't know why. I love getting things to vote and getting things to the people, because then you truly have what people want, rather than us deciding.
But we had it last year at town meeting. All of the people who came to town meeting did not know that it wasn't going to be on the ballot. So if the people in support of these articles had come to town meeting, they would have prevailed, and then we would have had to arrange for a special election. We talked about that at the meeting. There just was not enough support at town meeting. The town meeting spoke.
I mean, unfortunately, there's nothing new here tonight. I mean, this seems to be the cycle of when we don't like things, we bring them back up and rehash them. The majority of Lunenburg had the opportunity to vote about recreational pot as a ballot question on, to legalize it in the first place. The majority of residents in Lunenburg supported that. We've had the opportunity at town meeting there were 5 different articles to prohibit marijuana in some form, and all of them were defeated. So with that, I move to end discussion on this topic and move to the next agenda item.
Okay. Second.
I don't think we need a vote on that.
Yeah, I would just say, in terms of the discussion, the state vote that was held to legalize marijuana, and this went through that was to legalize it. It had nothing to do with zoning or wanting the stores. Those were two different topics. But can we at least admit, as a board, that a mistake was made that didn't get it to the ballot?
But it didn't matter.
Right, and it didn't matter, so.
It depends how you look at it.
Well, no.
It impacted
Votes.
town meeting because we found out there, and there's a lot of confusion, and town council weighed in.
Now, you're
but-
making assumptions about how people would vote.
There is no scenario in my mind that has me see people at town meeting that would have voted for the ban, but when they heard it wasn't on the ballot, changed their vote. There's just no scenario I see with that. If they would have voted against it and the ban would have passed, there would have been an outcry that says to the board, you will have a special election, and it never got to that, not on any one of the articles. So I think people did have the chance to vote on it, they did vote on it, and I agree with the rest of my colleagues on here who've spoken that I'm not interested in putting it back on. I think people had a vote and they spoke. Warrants, well, minutes, I don't have any minutes. So warrants. Accounts payable, $395,549.15.
Thank you.
Real estate refunds in the amount of $13,360.23. Payroll deductions in the amount of $181,197.39. And payroll in the amount of $805,640.38. The department report for the animal control officer is in there. I don't know if anybody had any reason to want to discuss it, but we can certainly, given the warning we've been given about the weather. If somebody wants to, I'm more than happy, we're here already, but otherwise I would just ask the board to review it. It's a quarterly report about the animal control officer's activities during the last quarter.
I was really surprised to see how many calls there are about cows in the road, and you know, I know that there's a lot of loose dogs around town, but I was a little surprised to see just how frequent it really is
Yeah,
a
happens a
issue.
lot. I skipped action items. Anybody have any action items?
Yes, I would like for us to add as an agenda item at an upcoming meeting, topic on a citizens award.
Okay, I will work with the town manager and put that on.
Thank you.
And please be prepared, as the proponent of putting it on, to present something about what you're thinking.
I just ask that it not be scheduled on the 10th of May. Excuse me, 10th of March, because I will not be here.
Okay,
Thanks.
not 3:10. Gotcha. Okay, any committee reports? Okay.
Nothing, thank you.
And then discussion, the old business is discussion about fiscal year 2021, the five-year forecast, or the annual town meeting warrant articles, of which we will have, the town manager will be providing a bunch for our review at,
The next meeting?
well, we don't have a meeting next week.
But I mean,
At
the first
third,
meeting in
yes,
March?
Our next meeting on March 3rd.
All right.
And I will ask that they be prepared in advance.
Thank you.
Yes. Any public comment from the public? Any public comment from the board?
Yes. I want to just give a kind of just a service announcement, really, that just to update people on the current scam that is going around on your phone lines. So many people are getting a pre-recorded message that basically says that their social security number is no longer going to be active and it's going to be terminated immediately unless, you know, legal action is going to pursue unless they hit number 2. And they can speak to someone about it. And then basically, you know, for everyone out there, just want to remind you that Social Security Administration will not call you. There's no such thing as your Social Security number being canceled. And so if you get these calls that are saying to you that, you're in some kind of IRS trouble or that there's some kind of Social Security issue, IRS, as we all know, doesn't call either. They're going to send you letters through the mail. If there's ever any concerns, you'll receive a letter in the mail. So please do not give these people the millions of dollars that they're making off of these scams.
I got a call from somebody that said they were Verizon and that my service was being disconnected.
That's a common one.
Yep.
And they said, to reconnect, press 1, to talk to someone, press 2. So I pressed 2 and they hung up on me, thank God.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who's at home, works from home, and I get a lot of these calls, and sometimes I take them because I just like to amuse myself because I know they're scams, and I try to keep people on the phone for like 45 minutes before I tell them that I know it's a scam, and I just stop them from calling 10 other people.
Yeah.
But if Verizon, don't give anybody information over the phone if they've called you. If you have Verizon and they say, oh, you're canceled, you hang up and you get out your bill and call Verizon and ask them. If somebody calls about your credit card, you don't give them any information. You call the number on the back of your credit card and ask them. So never do give any information when people call you, only when you initiate.
Same with an email.
What?
Same with an email.
Same with an email, right. So, and you should never answer any pertinent information on an email, count numbers and passwords, anything. Unfortunately, the people that they prey on are not people who, they're easily misled. And that's, and a lot of them are seniors who are easily confused or who just are much more trusting of people giving them information, not up to all the latest scams, which is really, really disappointing in humanity, but it is true. All right, any other public comment from the board? All right, so from the report from Mr. Luck, please be careful out there as everybody drives home. And we will not have a meeting next week. This will be the Sewer Commission, now with their full membership, next week, and we will be back on March 3rd.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Good night, everyone.